Hey there, this is Dax. Today I'm going to discuss something that's really been bothering me lately because I've been hearing people say things along this subject or along these lines that really bothers me. It's coming from people that I normally agree with. They're people that I normally see eye to eye with. But whenever this one subject comes up, I have to disagree with them completely, and I feel that it's important that I say something on the subject. And that is the idea that people have that actions are good or evil. The idea that your actions determine who you are the sum of your actions. If you act a certain way, you're good. If you act another way, you're bad. And I am thoroughly of the opinion that this is all horse shit. Let me describe it to you this way. They say there's that old saying out there, you know, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Nonsense. Intention is everything. It's not what you did that matters. It's why you did it. Let me put up this little example here, and it's kind of a weird example, but please follow me on it. Let's say that you've got three people there, person 1, person 2, and person 3. The only way person 3 can live is if person 2 dies. Okay, once again, this is a hypothetical situation. The only way person 3 can live is if person 2 dies. Person 2 is a wealthy individual and person 1 is in their will. Now person 1 is holding a gun to the head of person 2. They pull the trigger, boom, person 2 dies. Was that an act of good or evil? Well, on one hand, no matter what this person's intent is, person 2 dies, person 3 lives, person 1 inherits money. Whether or not this was an act of heroism or an act of villainy is determined by what person 1 was thinking when they pulled the trigger. If they were thinking about saving the life of person 3 when they killed person 2, then this is an act of good. If they were thinking about the wealth that they were going to inherit when they pulled the trigger, then this is an act of evil. Basically, my definitions of good and evil are: good is any act of selflessness. It is any act where you place someone else ahead of yourself. Evil is any act of selfishness. It is any act where you don't give a crap about anyone but yourself. You're doing it all for you. And so under that definition, you know, what person 1 did, whether they're good or evil, is determined completely by what was on their mind when they committed this act. A lot of people don't seem to like the idea of it being a thought. And the reason is because our society has gone very shallow and superficial. And when I say shallow and superficial, I don't mean that in a shallow and superficial way. I don't mean I'm holier than thou because I've got something against people driving expensive cars. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying our society has developed in a way where we believe that only matter exists and that anything beyond matter is irrelevant. This has led to several consequences. It has led to the worship of money, because money allows you to acquire things, and things are matter. It has led to the dehumanization of people. As long as you are shallow and materialistic, you will believe that people are just their bodies. And if a person's just a body, they're just a thing, and you can do whatever you want with a thing. There are no consequences. Ethics and morals become less important when you are on the shallow, superficial level. You believe that only matter exists. You have become materialistic. And because of this, people prefer the idea of an action being good or evil, because it's something you can see. It's something material. It's something you can point at and say, look at that. You know, because this person did that thing, it is an act of good. Because this person did this thing, it is an act of evil. One of the things that I wanted to get into on this is the legitimacy behind my point of view of what good and evil are. The reason why I believe the definition of good being anything selfless and evil being anything selfish is valid is because it holds up regardless of what your belief systems are. For instance, one way that a lot of people will define good and evil is through religious dogma, and I am not talking about a particular religion here. I myself am a Christian, and there are people out there who think I'm not a Christian just because of some of my points of view. But I am a Christian, so I am not dogging on Christianity. But I am pointing a finger at religious dogma. The idea that because it's written down, you don't have to think about what it actually means. And there are people who will take religious dogma and use that as the definition of good or evil. This particular scripture says that this act is good. This particular scripture says this act is evil. And honestly, a lot of times in religion, most of the dogma is not even coming from the scripture. You deal with this stuff today in the Middle East. And people take socioeconomic situations and they make it about religion, even though they're things that religion doesn't really care about. I mean, it happens on the Islamic side too. The Islamic clergy have discovered that they can use their religion as a source of power. And so they have turned their own prejudices into part of the dogma, even though it has nothing to do with Islam. We do that on both sides. So I am not pointing a finger at any one religion, nor am I leaving any one religion out. It's the mindset that I'm discussing here, not the religion itself. But there are people that go to their religion and use that to determine what is good and what is evil. The problem with that is that what one religion says is good, the other one won't. And I'm not talking in generalized ethics here, or ethics of any kind. I'm talking about the philosophy that it is okay to kill people of this belief system because they don't agree with us. Well, you go to that other group of people, their religion could very well say the same thing about theirs. You have a conflict between good and evil. So that definition of good and evil, it does not hold up to scrutiny. It doesn't stand up. It doesn't cross borders. So you can't really use that to define good and evil. Another definition of good and evil that is actually more common than that is whether or not I like it. If I like something, it's good. If I don't like it, it's bad. And that doesn't hold up at all because it changes from person to person. You find that a lot in politics, which politics have gone dogma to. You look at the news channels here in the United States at least, and everything is all about everybody in our political party is good and everybody in their political party is evil. If you agree with me, you're a good American, and if you don't, then you need to be shot or whatever for the good of the country. And it's all the same sort of thing. Because they like it, they've determined it to be good. If they don't like it, they've determined it to be evil, and this justifies conflict. It justifies going to war. And that's really what we have today in our political parties here in the United States, is the Republicans and Democrats, they convince their followers to be in a state of war with each other, even though we're the same country and we're supposed to be working together, even if we disagree. So that entire attitude of what is good and what is evil, none of it stands up to scrutiny. It's all based too much on opinion. And not only does opinion change from person to person, but opinion will change over the course of your life. Things will happen to you, and suddenly you will think differently now than you did back then. Whereas if the definition of good is anything selfless, and the definition of evil is anything selfish, that stands up, because that is something concrete. Regardless of your beliefs, if you're acting selflessly, it's an act of good. And you can take it over to religion, and it will still hold up to that too. I mean, you look at Christianity itself. God created life. That can be good or evil because that's based on your opinion. But God gave you free will. That is an act of complete selflessness. Because since He's given you free will, He's thought about you. He's given you the choice as to whether you're going to follow Him or not. And then you've got Satan. He's all about control, hate, personal power, personal gain. These things are selfish. They are completely focused on the self without any regard for what it does to anybody else. So the selfless versus selfish definitions, they hold up to standard dogma. You take it into politics, it does the same thing. You take it into personal experience, it does the same thing. So for me, that is the definition of good and evil. Good is anything that you do for others. Selfish is anything that you do for yourself to the exclusion of others. Selflessness versus selfishness. And I only brought that up because I've been in a lot of conversations lately where people seem to be missing that point. And I wish you well.